Hi, John. Just doing a sound check, please.
Yep, I got you here.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hi, Trevor. Can we do a sound check, please? Hi, Stephen Bannerman. Can we do a sound check, please?
Cheryl, you wanted a sound check?
Sound check confirmed. Mayor Heron, this is Sean Kirkpatrick. I'm just doing a sound check to make sure that you can hear the chambers.
I sure can.
Perfect. Thank you for confirming.
You guys hear me?
Loud and clear.
Perfect. I can only see Counselor Mackay logged into Zoom. Where's everyone? There's Natalie.
I'm here, Kat.
Okay. Can you guys turn on your cameras? Because then you are on my screen. People with cameras, I will see. Thanks. So I'm still needing to wait for Wes and Shelley. Are they in chambers?
No, Wes is. Matter of fact, it's an all-male jury today.
Wes, can you log into the Zoom so I can see you?
Just doing that now, Madam
Okay,
Mayor.
perfect. Okay. All right, let's get started. Thank you, Sean. All right, so I'll call the meeting to order for Tuesday, November 21st, 2023. Somebody in chambers bang the gavel for me. Jeez. All right, Councillor Mackay, do you want to make a motion to adopt the agenda?
Oh, I knew you'd come back. That the November 21st, 2023 agenda be adopted as presented.
Perfect. There's no additions, is there, Mr. Fletcher?
No, your worship.
Good. Okay. All right, call for the vote.
Do you want to vote on Zoom or in?
Well, I guess those of you there can just vote, and then those of us on Zoom can use a check mark or the X to vote. And then maybe Ledge can just read the results in for me.
Mayor, we're just waiting for your vote. I don't see it in mine.
There's a little green check mark in my screen.
Oh, sorry, I apologize. It's unanimous.
Okay, thanks. All right, as far as I know, we have no presentations because I didn't get any emails from you, Cheryl, so we have no registered speakers.
No, we do not.
Perfect. Okay, so we can skip 3 and 4 and go straight to consent agenda. I'll need somebody to read that in. And except for 7.1. So who wants to do that? Councillor Hughes, thanks.
Sure. Just give me 1 second here. That the recommendations in the following agenda reports be approved. 6.1, regular council meetings minutes of November 7th, 2023. 7.2, standing committee of the whole, full participation policy, CCAO 20. 8.2, 16 Richardson Drive, land disposition. 8.3, Environt 001, project scope change.
Perfect. I'll call for the vote. I'm going to assume that passes.
Unanimous.
Okay, perfect. All right, we just read in, we just approved on consent, sorry, with minutes from November 7th. And so we're going to 7.1, which is the Founder's Day policy. Councillor Killick pulled it just for voting purposes. So I'm going to, unless no one has any questions on this policy, I'll just take it straight to a vote if somebody wants to make a motion. Councillor Jolly, how about you?
Sure, if Cheryl could do the same thing she did with the last one, that policy CCC 18 St. Albert Founders Day be rescinded and that administration prepare a new proclamation for January 2024.
Okay, call for the vote. Long, awkward pauses.
It's carried with Councillor Mansky, Councillor Hughes, and Councillor Killick against.
Perfect, thanks. Okay, so now we are on to the corporate quarterly report, and we sometimes put them on consent and sometimes we'll leave them off, but this is one that's off, so Mr. Fletcher can give us a bit of a presentation, so I'll turn over to you, Bill.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. If you'll bear with me, I am going to try and share my screen without Sean's help. So far, it's not working super well.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna have to call Sean in.
No, we're good.
All right,
right.
go ahead.
All downhill from here. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council. I'm here to present the Q3 2023 Corporate Quarterly Report. The Corporate Quarterly Report is produced 4 times per year to formally communicate progress made to advance your strategic plan priorities and the financial position of the city for the quarter. Obviously, today I'll provide 2 components. The first is an update on the progress of advancing your strategic plan through planned initiatives, and then I'll provide a financial overview for the quarter with a preliminary forecast for our year-end position. As you know, Council's strategic plan outlines the what Council would like to achieve over the course of their term and in many cases beyond. The corporate business plan then outlines the how. In particular, specific strategies and initiatives planned will achieve the key outcomes desired to advance the priorities outlined in your strategic plan. What is not included in the quarterly updates are the day-to-day service delivery. Day-to-day delivery of services, is defined in our service and service level inventory. As you know, this is not an insignificant endeavor, occupying roughly 82% of our corporate resources. The reason we don't include this is because the focus of your strategic plan and the corporate business plan is on changes that require longer periods of time to be realized. It's also important to note that the progress on initiatives outlined in this report are current as of September 30th, 2023. Work has clearly continued past that point, but will not be reflected necessarily in the updates you receive today. As you can see on the slide, there are a total of 47 initiatives planned currently to advance your identified priorities. As of the end of Q3, 13 have been completed, 16 are on track, 8 delayed, 5 have been stopped, and 5 are scheduled to start within the next year to 18 months. Over the next few slides, I'll provide an overview of each priority and the progress of activities related to them. All 4 activities under your economic prosperity priority are on track. The servicing plan for Lakeview Business District is undergoing updates based on the defined phases, which are influencing changes to the St. Albert West Area Structure Plan Servicing and Design Report and related basins. Once the St. Albert Design West ASP receives your approval, scheduled for early next year, work will commence on the neighborhood plan. And as you know, in fact, we are accepting a little bit of risk in order to mitigate or improve the timelines by working concurrently on some of these issues. And the detailed engineering design for the Lakeview Business District will follow. Administration has received a servicing design brief and a natural features assessment and prioritization report related to the St. Albert West ASP and neighborhood plan. The draft ASP, policies, maps, and updates on the city-owned Badger lands as well is scheduled to be presented to the Standing Committee of the Whole in December of this year. There's still a significant amount of work to be done. However, administration is anticipating your first reading to take place at the end of Q1 in 2024. As we look at regional and sub-regional economic development, the incentives framework in collaboration with regional economic development officers is on track for completion by the end of this year. EBP US consultant is working on the site selection methodology and tool, most of which has actually been approved for the collaborative economic development project and is actually figuring in to the informed decision-making on Lakeview Business District. As we look at the ongoing work to update the land use bylaw, 4 more sections of the bylaw have been updated, and a status update was provided to the Standing Committee of the Whole. A review of the entire consolidated draft land use bylaw and public engagement is set to take place through Q4 and is currently ongoing. We're anticipating that the land use bylaw will be completed by the end of this year and proceed to you for decision in 2024. Of the 3 active initiatives under the downtown vibrancy priority, 2 are on track and 1 is delayed. Looking at Millennium Park development, the current development plan is being refined to reflect council's direction and assessments related to Lions Park, and also on the scale and scope of options for Millennium Park. The completion date for this initiative has been extended for additional council discussions. Timing is being aligned as closely as possible, as noted with the Lions Park Rehabilitation Project, to ensure efficiencies and Indigenous engagement is set for this quarter. Council discussions and developing options are scheduled for December 2023, with final options to be presented in Q1 of 2024. In June of this year, the BIA Steering Committee notified businesses in downtown St. Albert about the intent to establish a business improvement area. No petition against was received by the August 8th deadline, and in September of this year, the BIA establishing bylaw was passed by this council, enabling the BIA Association to proceed with voting on a board of directors and preparing an annual budget for council consideration. An annual general meeting is planned for November of 2023, and in fact just happened, and the operational status is still confirmed for 2024. As next steps, council will need to approve the appointment of the BIA board of directors, approve their proposed operating budget, pass the related BIA tax bylaw, and pass the BIA tax rate bylaw prior to May of next year. Finally, looking at DARP, or the Downtown Area Redevelopment Plan, administration has been actively collaborating with a consultant to assess the traffic impact in the downtown area, focusing on key initiatives within the Downtown Area Revitalization Plan, such as public parking, street realignment, and median improvements. Progress on this initiative has been slower than expected due to competing priorities, including the focus on the St. Albert West ASP and the land use bylaw updates. The team is also engaged in researching best practices, validating assumptions into the DARP initiatives, and preparing reports and presentations for the upcoming update to the Standing Committee of the Whole scheduled for Q1 2024. Of the active initiatives under the community wellbeing priority, 1 was completed in Q3 and 2 are on track and 4 are delayed. The final site design report and site plan was approved by council for the community amenities needs assessment and concept planning site on December 19th of 2023, and this component of that planning work is complete. Looking at the mixed market housing development, Homeland Housing has submitted preliminary drawings for pre-application review after an external urban design review, complying with the Downtown District Land Use Bylaw. This was done in preparation for their application to the Alberta Affordable Housing Partnership Grant, which occurred in October of this year. Advocacy efforts with federal and provincial governments are ongoing. Ground floor commercial space interest is being managed administratively, and legal agreements are under review. This project is on schedule, but external factors like rising costs and interest rates could lead to delays. Next steps involve preparing for the Affordable Housing Partnership Program request for proposals, again ongoing, finalizing agreements, and completing design and site studies for the development permit application. Looking at municipal naming, a high-level assessment of the policy was undertaken to identify components of the current administrative directive. The completion of an updated administrative directive was anticipated for the end of this year. However, progress has been hindered by competing priorities, such as St. Albert West ASP, the Land Use Bylaw Update, and Lakeview Business District, which have required in many cases some of the same sources, resulting in a short delay to the municipal naming project. The feasibility study for youth transitional housing, phase 1 of the project, which involves internal and external stakeholder engagement, has commenced. This initiative was slightly delayed from the original timelines due to the amount of time it took to finalize a contract with the consultant and the redirection of resources that were required specifically in this case to respond to the Northwest Territories wildfire emergency and evacuation. In-house housing options. This initiative is currently focused on completing a housing needs assessment, obviously critical in light of current regional dynamics, before it can move on to the development of a housing diversity monitoring program. Municipalities are all updating housing needs assessments for provincial housing programs and federal funding, with data gathered from various sources, including a community social needs assessment survey, which is another of our initiatives under this priority. A preliminary needs assessment was developed to support the Alberta Affordable Housing Partnership grant application in October of this year. However, a final assessment has been delayed till Q1 2024 due to resources, once again, in this particular instance, focused on support to the Northwest Territories wildfire evacuation. Indigenous reconciliation and synergistic partnerships. During this quarter, progress on the initiative was paused due to the Indigenous Relations Coordinator recruitment. As well, the Indigenous Relations Coordinator was an instrumental component of our Northwest Territories wildfire response. Despite this, a working group was formed to oversee activities on September 30th, 2023 in honor of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation in St. Albert. This initiative will resume in Q4 of this year, focusing on finalizing a project plan for a reconciliation action plan, with future plans to establish an advisory entity contingent upon that. Finally, as already mentioned, the community social needs assessment is ongoing. Administration completed the analysis of engagement results, conducted research on demographic, social profiles, and asset mapping, and evaluated the activities from phase 1 of the communications plan. This initiative also experienced some delays due to resources allocated in response to the Northwest Territories evacuation. This delay resulted in the need to revise timelines and extend the project into Q1 2024. A project status and what we heard report will be presented to Council in December of this year. This information will also be shared with committees and partners in January of 2024, and a stakeholder engagement session is planned for February of 2024. Both active initiatives under the Adapting to a Changing Natural Environment priority are on track. Firstly, the Climate Adaptation Plan and Risk and Vulnerability Assessment. The Edmonton Metropolitan Region Board, EMRB, and project consultants continue to finalize the recommended adaptation actions to mitigate the most significant climate impacts. The final Climate Risk and Vulnerability Assessment report, which is looking at it regionally, is anticipated to be presented to the EMRB for consideration and approval in December of this year. The Green Environment Strategy. Administration continued to work towards finalizing the Green Environment Strategy document and long-range strategy pilot report. A presentation to Council and the public release of the Green Environment Strategy document is anticipated for December 2023. The activities and initiatives under financial sustainability priority, 6 are on track and 3 are delayed. Administration continued work on an updated work plan for the long-term debt strategy. The validation of policy mapping and the collection of environmental scanning data is ongoing. A debt strategy video requested by Council, here it says in development, but actually has been released publicly. Standardizing of capital project and contract management procedures. A business process consultant has been procured and contract proceedings are underway. This project is set to officially commence in Q4 of 2023, focusing on process improvements and procurement audit implementation. Say that 7 times fast. Mature asset management position. In August of this year, administration and the Asset Management Committee collaborated on identifying revisions required to the project plan. The emphasis has been changed to the decision-making model and defining specific objectives. These changes are now being integrated into the asset management program documentation, and once done, will be circulated again for review and approval. Enhancing records and information management practices. The project plan for this initiative has been approved. Although, after reviewing project scope and resources, the completion date has been shifted from December 2024 to December 2026. In addition, progress continued on the development of a digitization directive, electronic signature directive, and related procedures. Meetings were also initiated for a change management plan and upcoming sessions with departments to assess electronic signature uses and needs. Procurement audit implementation phases 1 and 2. Roles and responsibilities have been finalized internally and will be officially updated on the city's procurement directive in 2024. Content for the city's intranet to support procurement is underway, and purchasing process documentation continues. A new RFX drafting solution will be soft launched by the end of this year. Additionally, new contracts are under internal review, with next steps involving the completion of process documentation, launching the RFX drafting software internally, and validating new contracts. An intranet page for purchasing services and the project will also launch by the end of this year. Advanced Integrated Risk Management Framework and Practice. Administration has reviewed the project plan based on the work completed in the second quarter with consultants and the Internal Audit Committee to identify synergies and efficiencies. Project deliverables are being reevaluated with a focus to continue momentum by integrating the risk registry and risk considerations into existing processes. The benefits identified in the operational and fiscal review related to the Arden Theatre operating model options review to lower access barriers, boost revenue, and contribute to community well-being have been achieved. Administration will, however, continue to seek improvement opportunities to ensure efficient service and theatre operations. The exploration of an alternative operating model will be revisited again in the future with the decision to proceed based on operational success and capacity. The Internal Audit Committee practice and process. Consultants guided the creation of the corporate risk registry that was then shared with the Internal Audit Steering Committee and used to inform the 2024 to 2027 Internal Audit Work Plan. The recommendations provided by the consultants for updates to the committee bylaw and collaboration with administration on aligning processes for updating the work plan to the city's business planning and budgeting process have been completed. The final report, including the internal audit work plan, was shared with council in October of this year, and the fully updated bylaw and project update will be presented to council today. Finally, process improvements for planning development and or engineering. The RFP process to select a consultant to assist with this work has been completed, and administration is working towards the finalization of the contract. A request during the RFP process to extend submissions and then subsequent contract reviews with the consultant has delayed the start. We're expected to commence this month. I will now present our financial summary for third quarter. As of September 30th, 2023, 146 million in operating revenue has been recognized, which is 73% of the forecast. Conversely, 138 million has been spent, which equates to 69% of our forecast. This results in a forecast $2.8 million surplus at the end of the year, mainly due to increased revenue, interest revenue, operating grants, and salaries due to extant vacancies. This chart identifies the progress status of all municipal capital projects. In total, 91% of the 155 municipal capital projects are currently in progress or complete, with 47 projects anticipated to be closed by year end. Updates on specific capital projects are communicated through the city website throughout the year. Transiting to utility operational highlights. For the utilities budget, as of September 30th of this year, the city has recognized $34 million in revenue and $26 million in expenses in the utilities budget. The revenue equates to 75% of the forecast, due principally to lower water and wastewater charges due to customers consuming less water. The expenses are 75% of forecast due to a lower rate of water purchased and wastewater treatment charges due to less water being consumed, much as the above. This has resulted in a 0.6 million or $600,000 lower than budget transferred to reserves. This chart identifies the progress status of all utilities capital projects. In total, 85% of the 55 projects currently in progress or complete are currently in progress or complete, with 11 anticipated to be closed by year end. The city website, as previously, also provides updates on specific utility capital projects throughout the year. And in closing, for 2023, the city is forecasting a $2.8 million surplus at year end. With strong investments, reserve funding, and low debt, the city continues to maintain a strong financial position while maintaining high level of services to residents and advancing the strategic priorities identified in council's strategic plan. Subject to any questions or comments, this concludes my presentation, and the recommendation that council receive this as information appears on the screen. Thank you.
All right, and I see hands up already, so we'll start with Councillor Mackay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Great report. Congratulations. I think we're well on the way. And I just wanted to identify that, I mean, overall, I think we're in an excellent position. But a couple of questions. So, I mean, a number of times, some of the initiatives were significantly or partially impacted by the requirement for you to move resources to help with the evacuation, the Northwest Territories wildfire. Do you find that is that across the organization, or are some areas more impacted in those requirements than other areas?
Yeah, thank you, Counselor. I think in this particular instance, there was a fairly significantly heavy burden placed on our FCSS folks as we looked at manning of the Emergency Response Center. And so that was not exclusive, both in terms of manning our integrated command post does take a cross section from across the corporation, and as well a number of people, frankly, just in their day jobs end up supporting principally as we look at finance and IT and a number of those corporate services. So in this instance, you'll note that many of the delays were projects that had a specific social component to them, simply because of that particular framework. I will ask Diane McMorty, put her on the bus if you wanted to add anything to that, having actually served as the DEM for a portion of that response.
Yeah, I would say that's a very good summary. Definitely a very high FCSS impact for that, as well as, and I would say probably finance and communications. Those always tend to be the big support areas for that type of an incident. But yeah, our FCSS group did a phenomenal job, but it did take a lot of their time for sure.
Yeah, I just think I mean, a couple of times now as we've been involved, whether it was Wood Buffalo fire or some other emergencies, I mean, that does put a lot of strain on our, and takes away from our other work. So I think it's important that we continue to identify that as we kind of look forward into other staffing concerns as we are talking about it probably on Monday and Wednesday. Yeah, other question I have in relation to 5.16, which is enhanced records and information management practices. When I'm reading the description, it says after careful review of the project scope and capacity and resource requirements, the completion date for this initiative has changed from December 24 to December 26. That's even I can do the math. 2 years. I guess, is the scope changing so much now that you're going to actually have to maybe change that and come out with a brand new project charter? Or is there other factors that kind of would explain kind of the wide discrepancy in that?
Yeah, thank you. Perhaps I'll offer initial comment and then I'll defer to Marta, who to add some initial detail. The scope principally, I don't believe we need a new project charter. This is really about managing capacity over time and consolidating on progress incrementally. And so while records and information management is being managed out of our Department of Legal, Ledge and Records, you got a new title, but records management, for all intents and purposes, it has a corporate wide impact, right? Everybody is touched by it because we start talking about not only the ones and zeros, but really the knowledge management processes and procedures that are absolutely essential, both in terms of compliance and in terms of efficiency, but that needs to be managed carefully across capacity. So I would offer that's the primary reason for that extension. Go ahead, Marta.
Yeah, that's right. And in addition, so the manager of records and information was actually seconded during COVID to the EOC for over a year, as were a lot of IT and communication staff who were part of that project. So once we got back to work, we don't need to change the scope of the charter, but we did refine the details of the work that we were going to be done. But it was a lot of secondment away from the primary work during COVID time. Actually, that is a part of the reason for the delay.
Yeah, no, thanks for the extra clarification. I just was thinking that, I mean, obviously, when you're talking about digitization and records management, 2 years is a big time. Lots can happen in that time. And I'm wondering whether or not it would be just more prudent to come back with a separate project charter as it relates to that. Because, I mean, you might be looking at something entirely different. I don't know. Just observations. Last question, and it relates to kind of the utilities operating variances. It's page 25 of your report, 44 of the package. It identifies a number of times where there's variances because, customers consuming less water, both for our water and then also our wastewater. Do we anticipate that carrying through into 2024, or did we factor that into our budget for 2024?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. In that particular instance, I'll ask Louise Stewart, and there we go. Regan Lefebvre is online. Perhaps I'll just go direct to him and he can offer some insight on that. Thank you.
So we have revised our forecasts for for 2024. So we've brought them down a bit. I do have a graph that I could share with you if you bear with me for a few minutes, but yeah, I think we've dropped it by about 200,000 or 300,000 cubic meters for the year, which is more in line. We had a dry year in 2021, I think is what did it to us. So then in 2022 and 2023, we forecasted on the high side, but it was just an adjustment that shouldn't have been made. It was just a strange year for weather in 2021, and we've since seen less water usage as a result of it's weather related. So.
Yeah, it's interesting that I would have thought the reverse would have been true, and you have a dry year, you would use, more water because residents are watering lawns or you're using water for other purposes. So I'm just.
That's right. That's what we did have happen, Councillor McKay. In 2021, we had a lot of water usage because it was a dry year, and then we forecasted high for the 2 years following. We forecasted water usage would be high again in 2022 and 2023, and it dropped back down. So
historically, it's kind of right back. Do you have historic graphs? I know you're an engineer, and I know you'd love to show graphs, but is it historical that you base this off of?
It is, yes. If you want to bear with me for a minute, and I'll bring something up here. I happen to have the folder open in front of me, so it shouldn't take too long.
I told you, an engineer. I have a son who's an engineer.
Did you want to jump around to another question and maybe come back?
Yeah, we could do that.
That might be better, Regan. Yeah,
Okay.
That's good. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
All right, Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. So I have a few questions about the, what is it? Page 39, about the numbers. So what I'm wondering about is, so you said it's partnerships and injury reduction WCB refund. So I thought our premiums were going up and we were having issues with costs for WCB. So I guess this looks like a good news story. Are premiums actually going down, or are they flatlining, or what is this exactly that we're getting?
Yeah, I think it's specifically related to some of the work we've done in response to the raising of premiums, but I believe we have Ryan Stovall. I apologize, I'm just checking to see if he's on. Might actually have to take that away and come back to you.
So I guess one of the things I'm wondering though is, did this affect our rates for next year, or is it just a one-time refund? Do we know?
Yeah, he's not online. I apologize, Councillor. We will get you that in. Yep.
Okay. Well, if he comes online later, that'd be awesome. The other thing was the tax penalty trending. So again, it's because it says it's trending, and I think that it has been going up over the past several years. Have we modified the estimated budget for revenue for 2024, estimating a higher revenue source from this, or no?
Through the mayor to Councillor Hughes, yeah, we have adjusted it up for the 2024 budget. Stephen Bannerman's on the line. He can probably speak to by how much, or we can get that to you right away.
Thanks, Anne. Yes, we have budgeted that up to 1.2 million for 2024. Our prior 3 years, we changed the tax revenue. We changed the tax penalties in 2019, and then 2020 had COVID. So we weren't certain. We'd only had 2 years trending prior to this at our new rates. So we were a little off on that. We were a little short.
Okay. So how much did we raise it by? We raised it to, but how much did we raise it by, or what was the previous? You said 1.2 million. I just don't know what it was before.
Correct. We had in January we had estimated 1,050,000 in tax penalty generation.
Okay, so we actually took the full 150. That's great. Okay. The other thing was the business and tobacco licenses fee as well. Was that amended at all in our revenue budget, or no? May not be to you, Steve. I don't know, but because I'm just thinking that would be probably a fairly consistent revenue source. So I'm just wondering if we did amend that at all going forward.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
going to pass that
Yeah.
one back to Anne. Yes, certainly.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's actually an economic development, business licensing. Sorry, I had trouble understanding, Counselor. Is that what you asked?
Yes, I'm just wondering, I'll talk really loud, okay? I'm just wondering if we have amended the budget for 2024 and by how much to recognize that we are getting, I mean, 41,000 actually is quite a few businesses and tobacco licenses. So I'm just wondering if we have and by how much amended the budget to reflect this.
So perhaps I'll ask Mike Erickson to comment. And I know that here in the room, finance staff are just looking up the line item. Mike?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know if I can answer that question directly right now, but that number is fairly static. It doesn't change greatly throughout the year. The number of licenses issued for tobacco companies.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not expecting it to vary. And what I'm wondering is whether or not the estimate for 2023 was understating it by 41,000. Have we modified it for 2024? That's what I'm wondering.
Through the mayor to Councillor Hughes, I can confirm that the 24 budget was amended up by $10,000.
Okay, perfect. And then the other one that I was looking at, just give me a second here, was the admission fees and passes. What did we do on this? I'm just looking for verification on this. But the admission fees and passes for the rec and also the swimming lessons, did we? Okay, a couple of things. So with this, we'll do one thing at a time. So the admission fees and passes, that's just like drop in and guessing your monthly passes. So was this amended as well? I know, actually, I don't know. Did we amend this to reflect it? Because that's actually a pretty big amount of money.
Yeah, we've got Danielle online. I'll offer her first commentary as we look at that.
Thanks, Councillor Hughes, for the question. I'm assuming you're asking if we amended it for the 24 budget. Is that correct?
Bingo. Yep.
Yeah. So we have amended it by an increase of $723,000 in recreation and parks. So we've seen a revenue increase. Now that it goes across memberships. It's a big grouping that covers memberships, day admissions, and drop-in admissions as well.
Does that include the swimming lessons as well?
No, that's just membership sales, membership and day admission sales.
So we increased it by 700,000, but in part it would have been because we had a pool closed, right? So obviously it would go up.
Correct. That is a departmental number. Correct.
So is that significantly? I guess is the 361 just because it opened, or is it extraordinarily higher than what we were even anticipating, type of thing?
Our numbers continue to trend up. So we're seeing our numbers continue to trend up on day admissions. We're above the numbers we were seeing in 2019. Where we're still seeing room for growth is on the membership side. And that is still proving to increase, though. We are still seeing increases on the membership side. We're now just slightly about 700 short, 700 to 800 short of where we were pre-2019 on the membership side. So we're still seeing that increase.
So, and just so I can sleep at night, Danielle. So we've amended the budget for 2024 basically to reflect that reality. Is that correct?
Correct. And with the postponed motion that's being considered next week, that'll make that final amendment and tweak to bring us in line with where we are in 2023 and that growth that we're seeing currently trending.
Yeah, and I really appreciated what was written in that backgrounder. Thank you. Okay, so we've already, and the swimming lessons, have we captured that somewhere as well going forward, or no? Or do you think it's like a one-off, or?
So we have covered for an increase of $586,000 in program revenue for the departments. That does cover swimming lessons as well. The difference with swimming lessons is there's an offset to that comes with a cost. So the cost of paying for the staff that run the lessons and all the supplies required to facilitate those programs. But we have seen an increase of over $500,000 on the program revenue side as well for 2024.
Okay. So I'm also just wondering about the culture ticket sales that it says lower due to demand. Again, that's a fair bit of money. Can somebody explain what happened to, or why we think it is lower? Obviously it's lower, but was it just that we didn't have the response that we were hoping for from our series, or
do we
have any idea?
I know we've got Elizabeth Wilkie online. I'll ask her to comment. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for the question through the mayor to Councillor Hughes. Yeah, it definitely based on trying to predict post-pandemic based on operating for less than half of the year last year. Our numbers were really our best case guess of what it would look like this year and where we anticipated demand would get to. And we have not realized that this year, but we do continue to trend upwards. So are expecting we'll get closer next year.
And it's always good to be optimistic sometimes, and it's not the end of the world. We have a very large surplus to cover off that, and I'm sure it'll bounce back for next year. I think that might have been, give me 1 second here. I think that might have been it for now. But I just wanted to, really quickly, Mayor, I just wanted to, again to thank the staff for the service place backgrounder, the BIR, and the work that they've done the date to get that deficit down. So it has not gone unnoticed, and I want to just acknowledge them for that. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Perhaps, Councillor. Sorry, Your Worship. There was the one question on the workman's compensation or workplace compensation, rather. If it's all right with you, we'll take that as an IR. We didn't have a fact I've got from our manager of HR, director of HR. We had a one-time larger than expected rebate, but there are a number of caveats and idiosyncrasies that we probably need to explain in a better fashion than I could do here. So.
Okay, great. I look forward to seeing that. Thank you.
Regan, do you have that graph that you wanted to show Councillor Mackay and the rest of us?
I do. If I can share my screen, just hang on 1 second.
Sure.
So, is everybody, can you see that? Is it?
It's coming, I think.
Okay. Just let me know when you see it.
Yep, we can see it now. Okay.
So we track the historical water consumption in the city, and it's measured in megaliters, which is 1 million cubic meters, or 1 million liters, or 1,000 cubic meters. So you can see this back in the around the year 2000. That's actually 2002 was our highest water consumption year, and that was a drought period. That was an exceptional year. But we're also seeing a trend in overall declining water usage, and this is a result of water conservation. It's more water efficient appurtenances. So even with growth, I mean, the city's been incurring between 1% and 2% growth. Even with growth, our total water consumption in the city has been declining steadily since 2002. And what happened to us in the last couple of years is we had another dry year in that 2021, and we projected water sales would be higher the following year, and they were actually lower. And we further projected into 2023 that water sales would again be high, and we're actually projecting they're going to be quite a bit lower in our forecasting, and this is what we're forecasting for 2024. So a considerable drop in water sales, and then we divide a lot of our costs into that variable rate because we have markup on the purchase cost of the water from EPCOR. And if we sell less water than we expect, then we end up with a deficit at the end of the year. So we really want to be accurate in that forecasting, but it's weather dependent to some extent. So
yeah, it is hard to predict because I don't know if you look at farmers' almanacs or whatever to try to figure that out. But
that's right. So some years we'll win and some years we'll lose. We've had 2 years where we've lost in a row, so we feel like we need to make an adjustment. Thanks.
So do you remember what our target consumption per capita is?
Not offhand. I don't remember that.
200 and I can't remember. I can look it up. It's probably in our some sort of strategy or master plan for the environment. But I was talking to some of the mayors from Southern Alberta, and Southern Alberta residents are utilizing less than 100 liters, whatever, like significantly less than what we're even targeting here in St. Albert, just because their lives are different down there.
What's interesting, we've actually been talking about revisiting that target a bit, because that's looking at the total water consumption in the city, right? So we divide our total water consumption. That includes commercial, industrial, institutional, and we divide that by the number of people that we have. And that's not the typical way. When you set a target for water conservation, you're typically only focused on residential water use, right? So when we have like a business, like let's say a brewery were to open up, a brewery would use a lot of water. Well, our per capita water consumption for the city would go up because a brewery opened up here. Right. And So we might want to revisit that target, because that's looking at the total water usage divided by the number of people. And then you have those impacts of ICI. If a business were to shut down, it makes things look good on a water conservation perspective. But really, I think what we want to be focusing on is that in-home use, and getting that water conservation down, not so much on the business or the institutional side of things. Because those are dependent on, I mean, processed water, it's dependent on other factors, right? So it's an input into a business. So
Cool. Thank you for that. That's interesting. I'm gonna head over to Councillor Bermansky now.
Thank you, through the mayor to administration. And my questions would probably be for Regan again, related to the utility rise in cost. Which line item would show the electricity cost increase?
I don't, we have a line item in our budget for electricity, but I don't know that you would see it in that detail.
Because it's my understanding that the electricity increase is affecting just like the water usage is affecting. Is that not correct?
It is actually, it's a fairly small input cost for us, electricity, but we did see a jump in the electricity cost, well, for 2024, because we enter into contracts every few years, right? So for the last 5 years, we've had no increases, and now we've got a fixed rate contract for the next 6 years. So we do have an incremental increase going into 2024, and then we will have no increases other than usage beyond 2024. But for us on the water side, it is a relatively small input cost when compared to labor and our water purchase cost. Those are the big drivers for us.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question is was there data assembled like from 2021 that was predominantly people all at home? That's why we were using more water, more toilets, more showers, when people were, hunkered down at home. So, did you adjust for that in predictions, or was that the just projected increase in case?
Typically, we've looked at the previous 5 years and taken sort of an average of the last 5 years and then projected forward with growth. But what we've seen in the trending since 2002 is obviously water conservation has had a bigger impact than I think anyone expected. And it's not just people making a conscious effort. It's more water efficient toilets, right? You can't buy a toilet now that uses the amount of water that the toilets did 20 years ago. The amount of water that when you flush a toilet, it's about a quarter what it used to be, right? So,
so will that 2020? Sorry, will that 2021 data distort the 5-year number for until like 2026 kind of thing?
It would have, but we're making an adjustment to the trending that we're seeing. Yeah, we're factoring in the weather that year was makes it a bit of an outlier. So,
okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Perfect. Councillor Killick.
Thank you, and I'm glad that Regan pointed out that if we get more breweries, the water rates will go up.
No, water rates will come down if we can get a brewery, Councillor Killick.
Whatever it does, I think we should do it.
Wastewater will improve too.
Wastewater. On a more serious note, downtown vibrancy, thanks very much for the update and being on track on the BIA. That's great. The question I had was on page 24, it was DARP being in yellow, in particular, downtown street realignment. I assume that's St. Thomas, and the median improvements, again, I assume those are on St. Thomas, and they are pretty high priority items relative to improving the downtown. So, and they've been on the books a long time, in particular that median, the bricks, etc. So question is that something that will carry over, and what would be the timeline for that, and the timing to bring that as a budget item forward? Because I don't think it's in discussion for 2024 budget at this time.
In terms of the details, Director of Planning is actually trying to get on, Adrian Slatt. So if you'll wait, we'll see if we can get him on. If not, we might have to come back to you with a more detailed answer. My apologies.
Oh, no, that's totally fine. Thanks, Phil. The other part of that question is obviously wanting to align that work when 22 St. Thomas hopefully comes online, so that we're, doing everything together. So that question can wait. Municipal budget, page 37, we went through that pretty quickly. It shows that we're at 69% of forecast. This is on the capital side, and about 54% of the capital spent at the end of Q3. So my question is, I know these are multi-year projects, are we going to end up at year end with all of the billing and payments lining up to meet our budget? And I saw the project chart, Bill, that you put up, the circle that showed, projects status, but it didn't, maybe I missed it, didn't see where are we going to end up the budget at the year end?
Thank you for the question, through the chair to Councillor Killick. So you are correct in some ways. A lot of the big projects will have the last quarter, you'll have a lot of the billing, but several of these are multi-year. So you'll notice that out of the 155 projects, we're anticipating that 47 will be completed. The rest of them will be coming back to council to be asked to be carried forward in February of 2024. So it's kind of a combination. There can also be some really large projects that are in there that can kind of skew the amounts that have been paid to date. But certainly for a lot of the anything that's like roads or infrastructure, a lot of the work that's done in the summer, the last quarter is a significant amount of the invoices that are coming due for payment.
Okay. I guess we'll look forward to that report in February. Okay, perfect. Under the community and recs section, page 39, it said they were 757,000 lower due to wages and vacancies. That's about 7 people, maybe more. Are those vacancies that, what can we attribute those vacancies to? Are they just, was it Fountain Park pool shutdown or others that?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I'll ask Danielle to comment, but Fountain Park was absolutely part and parcel of that.
Thanks, Councillor Killick, for the question. There was a number of factors I would say that lead into that, and I can speak on behalf of Recreation and then ask Elizabeth Wilkie to chime in with anything else she can add. One of the big factors in that, though, was we went through a restructure in Recreation and Parks, and so while we were waiting to go through a reorganization, we actually didn't fill vacant positions just until we got the restructure set. So we sat in a number of vacancies for a couple of months while we were doing that, which attributes itself to a piece of that, certainly, as well as I would say just this Fountain Park closure. And then on top of that, we also had some just general staff vacancies that you would see in a normal annual cycle. But I would say a significant piece of that was our workforce planning for sure.
Yeah, I know how hard it is. You've been very good at articulating how hard it is to get pool staff, lifeguards. Once you lose them, it's hard to get them back. So good to have that clarity. The last question I had right now was a couple of items that were in red and one in yellow. The infill strategy being in red means it's stopped, and the enhanced housing is yellow. Those are pretty high priority from a council perspective. Infill's been on the I would say secondary priority list for quite a while. And my question is, will the federal government, I think I've got the acronym right, half the Housing Accelerator Fund, all of those initiatives that we applied for, will that help to bring those back into the doable phase? Because money is one thing if we get the half grant, but will we have the manpower to bring kind of those projects back into the doable phase and get them from red or yellow back into even a more green phase?
Yeah, I think actually Adrian's online, so I will ask him to comment. What I'd say is that in particular, as we looked at the infill strategy, those were deliberate decisions just based on capacity and prioritization, right? And so the half, providing it's approved, and we've not heard. The good news was that they didn't have to come and ask us questions, so it was a very clear and thorough submission. That has, I think, about 6 or 7 line items or lines of effort, pardon. So it will be related to those, but I can't unequivocally put my hand on my heart and say the infill strategy will be accelerated because of receipt of the half, because it will be the same folks trying to parse out all those issues. And so it will have to be a deliberate decision over time. Adrian, did you want to comment?
I think you kind of addressed it. The real issue for us is capacity. We're kind of all hands on deck between St. Albert West Area Structure Plan and the land use bylaw. So we need to get one or both of those things off of our plate before we can take on something else, because those are such huge projects. We do intend to take up the infill strategy starting in 24, and that would be regardless of any half grant funding. And then the housing stuff, I think obviously it probably helps, but it's just a matter of capacity at this time.
And just a follow up to that then, and I apologize, I should know the 23 budget request better, but is there any additional staff asks in the 23 budget that will also help address these big initiatives that we have prioritized? But I understand why we've made the other two much higher priority, absolutely. But do you have staffing requests in to help address this as well?
Not specific to housing, no. So we just recently hired the housing coordinator. I'm getting the exact term wrong out of FCSS, right? But our affordable housing coordinator. So that is some additional capacity that's working on the spectrum of housing. But in terms of the pure capacity, really, I guess what I'd offer in many cases, this relates in some degree to some specific planning. I would offer probably the biggest implication as we look at the out years would be the land use component of that, so we can be a little bit deliberate in terms of our outlook for designation. The short term is really more so about the bylaws and everything else, right? It's density, it's housing forms, it's affordability, and the spectrum of that housing. There are no asks specific to that in the 23 budget.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Councillor Broadhead.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. My questions, such as they were, have been asked already. I'd be more than happy when the time is right to move the motion.
Okay, I will come to you. I just had one quick one. Mr. Fletcher, you mentioned in your update that the BIA had their first annual general meeting, I guess you would call it. Is it public? Who was elected to the board, and if there was significant interest to serve on that board?
Yeah, thank you. Our economic development team attended, so I'll ask Mike Erickson to provide some commentary.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. I wasn't personally in attendance. I don't think that information, but to answer the question, I don't think that information is private. We can certainly request that information, find out who has been nominated to the board of directors.
Okay, I can contact Michelle or Shannon myself too, but if you find out, that would be great. And then I guess we need to put it somewhere on the cap list, approval of that board and their budget. And you said before May?
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
Absolutely.
Make a note of that. All right, Councillor Hughes, you have another question?
Yeah, thank you. I forgot two questions. So you mentioned about the police salaries and wages of overtime. And I'm just wondering, is it mostly in fire or mostly in police? That we have the overtime? And what were you referring to with the wildfire deployments? 'Cause I didn't know we did any wildfire deployments this year.
Yep, thanks, Council. I can answer your second question first. We did send a firefighting team west from the fires in Parkland and the vicinity of Edson. So we actually did send some crews out to assist with those firefighting efforts. The rest was planning for the potential to receive Alberta-based evacuees, which did not come to fruition. And then obviously the all hands on deck push for the wildfire evacuees out of Northwest Territories. But we did send a firefighting crew to assist with Edson. In terms of the second piece, the split ultimately between police and fire, I don't have that answer offhand. I see that we've got our fire chief and director of emergency services, Everett Cook. Perhaps I'll defer to him.
Thank you, CAO Fletcher and to Councillor Hughes. I may ask if Stanley Chan or Ann Victor is online just to confirm this for me, but the lion's share of the increases with respect to wages for the fire service is around the annualization or the increases of members moving from a second to a first class firefighter, for example, whereas the remaining amount of wages or increases that we've seen in emergency services is due to the increased salaries for our RCMP officers and increased costs of contracts to address those officers here in town and the changes that have happened on that front. I'm not sure if Ann or Stanley are on the line to confirm the exact numbers for me to get down into the granular detail. If not, we'd be happy to bring that back in an IR for you.
Yeah, or just as a follow-up meeting or something. What I'm just trying to figure out is, did we have a lot of overtime for police? Because I know we're short-staffed in the policing area, or was the majority of, because it says it says wages due to overtime. So it's not just about increases in salaries, it's from the overtime, the 415,000. So I'm just trying to figure out, like, was it focused? I guess I'm not really sure. Would it be helpful if you guys just brought it back to us next meeting or something about that?
We can bring it back. Sorry, I just got finance here. The majority of the overtime is related to fire specifically. We can get a more defined breakdown to you, but the majority is
sure. And with and it was from the wildfire deployments, basically. Is that what I'm hearing as well?
I would defer to our Chief Cook.
Okay.
Thank you. Again, that would be something I'd have to, I couldn't give you a definitive answer that I'd be very confident in today. I would have to actually have a look to give you those exact or those specific numbers. But we did accrue a large amount of overtime with the deployments. We actually did 3 deployments with the fire services over the course of this summer. And of course, there's other needs around the community as well, but that's something we can bring back to the next meeting if you like.
Yeah, I guess what I'm looking for is just reassurance that, like, I know that in the past we've hired additional firefighters. Can you just give one? They've hired additional firefighters, and part of it, I know it was to staff the other fire hall, but it was also, we were told that, we were having a lot of overtime issues with fires. I'm just wondering if those have been resolved. I guess it would be the easiest way for me to answer that, or not obviously completely gone. There's no such thing as completely gone away, but if we've actually seen it where it's, we'll call it manageable level, or if it's still an alarming level.
I would have to start to answer your question, Councillor Hughes. We do budget for overtime every year. Yes, we know that, of course. And overtime is dependent on a number of things, including everything from training through to call response, if we have a number of calls here within the community, or if we go outside of our community and provide those responses as well. Again, if we were able to take that away in an IR, to bring back more of a detailed response for you, so it's more accurate. Because right now, to be honest with you, I couldn't again give you a definitive answer on those exact numbers today.
Okay, perfect. I'd look forward to getting that as an IR then. That would be helpful. Thank you. That's it. Thanks, Mayor.
All right. I see no more hands up, so I'm going to go back to you, Councillor Broadhead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the attachment to the November 21st, 2023 agenda report entitled Corporate Quarterly Report, Quarter 3, 2023 be received as information.
All right, I accept that motion. And any comments before we go to the vote?
Oh, yes, Madam Mayor. Yet again, it's a joy to receive such a report. It indicates, you know, that our administration is on top of the myriad of things that goes on within a corporation the size of St. Albert. And we as council, we get an opportunity to provide oversight by asking questions and receiving answers, and that's all well and good. But nonetheless, at the end of the day, the picture is that the corporation of the city of St. Albert is well run and is online to be close to budget. When you got $130 million budget, a variance of that and what we're talking about here is immaterial, I think is the auditor word. So in any case, just to the last question, and it was my joy to be present at along with Councilor McKay and Councilor Mackay yesterday, or Mackay and sorry, you were noted there yesterday, Councilor Killick, at the graduation of the latest firefighter recruit class. So 9 more have been brought on the staff to fill vacancies, but also to fill out the complement required. And so in any case, it was good to be there. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Oh, thank you for attending, Councillor Broadhead. Councillor Hughes, you have comments on the motion? No, your hand was up. Sorry. All right. I love how you consider $2.8 million immaterial. But I know what you're saying, and I also think it's amazing that you find this joyful to read. Good for you, Councillor Broadhead. I will call for the vote.
It's unanimous.
Perfect. Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, next on our agenda was on consent, which was the 16 Richardson Drive land disposition. The motion read that the chief administrative officer is authorized to take all necessary steps as required under the Municipal Government Act to enter into an agreement and effect a transfer of the city-owned land legally described as Plan 1624264, Block 3, Lot 2, accepting thereout all mines and minerals, and municipally described as 16 Richardson Drive in St. Albert to Quadreal Property GP Inc. or a corporate or partnership affiliated for nominal consideration. I think the next one was on consent too. Hold on. Which was that? Sorry, guys. Just find it.
It's in the chat, Mayor.
Yeah, this was the scope change for Environment 001. Sorry, that the revised capital charter entitled ENV 001 contaminated sites provided as attachment to November 21st, 2003 agenda report entitled what I just read be approved. Okay, and then we also have next on our agenda is this audit committee bylaw. So I have Daria down to present this. Is that correct?
That is correct. Perhaps if I could recommend, if you're willing to give us 5 minutes just so she can, or you get settled in. She just moved into the room there.
Just point of order, Madam Mayor. Did you read the public participation one?
Well, I might not have. I might not have. Thank you, Councillor Broadhead or Councillor Mackay.
Actually, it was Councillor Killick. He just can't hit his mic fast enough.
So that was right, 7.2. So that, hold on, let me read it into the record. This was the one that we did at committee last week. All right, that the amended public participation policy CAO 20 attached to agenda report dated November 14th, 2023, entitled Public Participation Policy be approved. Sorry about that, and thanks for the heads up. All right, Daria, go ahead with internal audit.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and members of council. I'm just setting myself up here. Just give me 1 second. Okay. Just give me 1 second. There we go. There we go. Almost there. Okay, so for today's presentation, I will provide a brief update related to the work that was done with direction of the Internal Audit Steering Committee, which oh my gosh. Okay, sorry about that.
We don't mind reading all your notes.
Oh, I'm not sure how to change. Okay, sorry.
That's okay. Go back to here. Choose the screen. That big one right there.
Okay.
And then share that out.
Okay.
I love how Sean's whispering. but
Sean saves
into
the
the
day.
microphone so we can all hear.
It's always good to get Sean come to rescue. Okay, let's try this again. So yeah, I'll provide. So it's not letting me. Sorry, advance. Sean, sorry, it's me again. It's not letting me advance. So try. Okay, here we go. Okay, now we're back, now in business. So I'll provide a brief background related to the Internal Audit Steering Committee, the project update related to establishing practice and processes for the Internal Audit Steering Committee, and high-level overview of changes made to the bylaw that's in front of council for approval today. So the Internal Audit Steering Committee was first established with council direction in 2016. It was a new practice for the administration, and the current bylaw guided the work of the committee to date. So the audits that have been completed to date include procurement audit, risk management audit, and operational and fiscal review that was completed. Many of the recommendations for all three, are still in process of implementing. Council identified Internal Audit Steering Committee and internal audit practice as one of their priorities under the financial sustainability in Council strategic plan, with the project initiated in 2022 to really look at establishing more formal practice and related processes. So informed by leading practice research, committee directed administration to obtain services of external consulting firm to formally establish practice and related processes. So the consultant was hired to help us establish risk-based internal audit approach, which would include development of a strategic risk register. The risk register was then used to help inform the internal audit plan, as well as development of processes that will help us align the work of the Internal Audit Steering Committee with the city's existing business planning and budgeting processes, and related tools and templates that would help us manage the process moving forward. Another deliverable was a review of the bylaw with particular focus on helping us clearly define committee's mandate, roles and responsibilities, more clearly defined internal audit practice at the city, and few other recommendations that were provided. So currently, the multi-year work plan that council received last month includes top 3 audits that would be completed over the next couple of years. So cybersecurity, workforce planning model, and review of digital transformation strategy. We anticipate that each of these would take about a year or year and a half or to 2 to complete, depending on the scope and resources required. So as one audit is completed and recommendations move into implementation, then we would commence the second one. Committee does have a new process in place where work plan would be reviewed on an annual basis. So these 3 are subject to annual review and confirmation that these are the ones that are proceeding. Looking at the bylaw that council received, some of the key changes that were made is under one first area is approach. So the internal auditor position was replaced by the internal auditor service provider. Consultant was hired to help us develop that multi-year plan that will then be maintained by administration. Frequency of audits completed by a third party was a bit more clearly explained in the bylaw, as well as annual review of the work plan and committee's role related to budget, both for completing audits as well as opportunity to recommend or request budget from council for implementation of recommendations that come from any internal audits. Under recruitment and the selection, the information was added related to preferred qualifications, knowledge, and experience that members of the committee would have, and this would be this would start in 2025, as well as introducing more structured orientation process for members of the Internal Audit Steering Committee. Roles and responsibilities in the bylaw were more clearly defined, just to ensure clear expectations, both on the committee side and administration. So committee's role in reviewing and providing input into risk register that then helps inform the work plan, and the role of providing input and approving the work plan. As I mentioned, the role related to budget, requesting budget so that committee can do its work, as well as recommending budget for implementation of any recommendations that may come out of audits. And then, of course, administration's role is to coordinate the work related to a committee and provide the best advice when committee is looking at hiring internal audit service provider. And then the role of the service provider was also more clearly defined. In regards to meetings, frequency and purpose of those meetings is better defined. And it's establishing council chair as a chair for internal audit steering committee meetings. So with that, we have recommendations for council related to bylaw. So to do the first, second reading, we do have one added recommendation. After reviewing the bylaw, after we went to council, we noticed that there is a typo in one of the sections. So Martha pointed out that we have to correct that before council approves it. So that's why you're seeing text in green. So our apologies for that. But before we go into recommendation, I'll stop and see if council members have any questions that we can answer for you today.
Awesome. Thank you. Councillor Hughes, go ahead.
Thank you. So Daria, when I look at the core meetings and rule procedure, we have the 3 meetings, minimum 3 meetings a year. That's fine. What was the thought process besides saying that the first meeting will be held in March and not held by March? Why are we not having the first meeting in January, for example? What was the thoughts behind that?
So the thought behind it is that we usually have council strategic planning session in January, which is usually followed by a planning session with leadership team and executive leadership team to review and update corporate business plan. So risk register, for example, would be updated during that session in February. So then we would bring that risk register along with the updated work plan to committee in March. So that was the logic behind the March date.
So I mean, I can see that if it was starting new, but like I'm thinking of next year, for example. So we have a meeting in a couple of weeks. And then we're going to have a follow-up meeting once the RFP closes. So we may not be able to follow this prescription because we may not, it may be prior to, I'm hoping it is prior to March, or in other circumstances, it may fall where the RFP closes in January, for example. So, I guess, Mayor, I'm willing to do an amendment to just say held by March, just so that we have flexibility, but that way there will be an expectation. Unless you've got a real reason, because I'm just thinking it's really possible that we could be meeting prior to March next year and that would be technically our first meeting.
Yeah. And, you know, of course, you can amend, recommend amendment. This was just to provide at minimum. So at minimum, we would have these meetings. What bylaw does not show, and you're correct in that, is that any other meetings that committee may agree to have as a follow-up or meetings that may be scheduled to provide progress update as we proceed with audits. So those are not all reflected in the bylaw. The reason for including these three is to show at least these three at minimum will take place. But, you know, I think that that's okay amendment to make as long as we have, again, that flexibility. But that was the reasoning behind it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm willing to put forward that amendment just so that we have flexibility and that's not prescriptive.
And I find it's more prescriptive, Councillor Hughes, you saying by instead of before. Because, so
by allows us.
You're proposing an amendment that says exactly what?
Just that the first meeting of each calendar year will be held by March. Right now it says in March. So that means that we can't meet in January or February if circumstances were to suggest it.
Okay, I see. That said before. Okay. So
do you want me to type that up? I'm just asking Cheryl, or can you guys just type that up to say, what would you like me to do?
We have it. Councillor Hughes ready to go. So yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, not to put too fine a point on it, but by March, sorry, if you're okay, by the end of March is what I think that intent. So that gives us essentially the first 3 months. Okay.
Yeah, we're just looking for flexibility here. So absolutely, that would be fine. That's it for now. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Killick.
Thank you. In the backgrounder document, it says the key benefits of the new bylaw will be to clarify the roles of administration and the committee. Daria, in your slide, I think it was slide 6 with the blue boxes on it, it says internal audit service provider role. I'm not familiar with what do we mean by that exactly? Is that a consultant or?
Sorry about that.
Maybe move the mic a little bit.
I'll repeat. It is an internal audit service provider that committee would hire to conduct audits that are planned in the work plan.
Okay, thank you. It just was the third term that wasn't in the backgrounder and I wasn't sure exactly what it was, but thanks.
All right, I see no more questions. So I have some, Councillor Hughes, you can make the motion and the amendment all in one if you want. Oh, Councillor Mackay, you have your hand up?
No, I was just going to make the motion, but I agree with you. If Councillor Hughes wants to do that, that's perfectly fine with me.
Okay. Sure. And so I'm just wondering, we'll do the amendment at the second reading, correct?
That's correct, Councillor Hughes. So we'll put up first reading, second reading, and then the amendments, the one that you noted plus the one typo that we had noted in administration at the same time, if that's okay.
Yeah, we'll do that at the same time. Okay, hold on a second here. You had it on the screen and you took it off. So I was like, I'm all ready to go. And then you took it off. So let me just go up here. Okay. That bylaw 24/2023 internal audit steering committee be read a first time.
All right, accept that. Any comments, Councillor Hughes?
I think that updating this just to reflect the realities of the committee and just providing some framework so that when we do move forward, we have a bit more stability on there, I think is a good thing. So I want to just thank the staff for all the time that they put into this so far.
Okay, perfect. Councillor Broadhead, comments?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to lend my support to this particular bylaw, I'm a real proponent of having a scheduled and planned out internal or auditing process. I mean, in the MGA, we have a prescribed financial auditing program, but this is around internal process auditing and to identify the risks within the organization that need to be reviewed to make sure that we're as current with best practices possible today and to identify any opportunities for improvement. and this is not something that should be feared, but rather embraced across the organization. And the idea of it having it being planned and planned against a risk registry reduces a lot of the natural anxiety that comes with an audit. Because managers, you know, they tend to get a little uneasy when auditors come into their area and take a look at how they do business. But this is not the intent. The intent is to help everyone do a better job. So I'm certainly supportive of the program. I'm certainly proud to be a part of the committee going forward. And anyway, those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Councillor Mackay.
Yeah, I'm just also going to lend my support. I just want to congratulate staff. I mean, certainly when I became a part of this committee, I could see that there were some gaps in some of our processes, and I'm very optimistic that this new revised bylaw will address those. So I'm not going to say it's with much joy, like. However, I said, you know, it's really gratifying to see this evolve and actually progress and actually turn into an actual internal audit process. So I support it wholeheartedly.
All right. Anything to close, Councillor Hughes?
No, just thank you for being so eloquent again, Councillor Broadhead, and Councillor Mackay for your support on this. So you said everything I should have said the first time around. So I guess I didn't need to, because I knew you're coming. That's it. Thank you.
Call for the vote.
Unanimous.
Thank you. You can continue, Councillor Hughes.
Can we put it in the chat? Because I don't have the amendments that they wanted. And do I want to do this after second or after now? Is it okay
Sorry,
to do it
Councillor
now?
Hughes, second reading is first. We'll just pop that in the chat for you.
Okay, that bylaw, I can do that one. Bylaw 24/2023 be read a second time.
All right, can I go straight to the vote on that? Okay, all those in favor? I'm going to assume that is unanimous, so I'll get you to read. Yeah, thanks. I'm going to get you to read the amendment, Councillor Hughes.
That bylaws 24/2023 be amended by deleting the word pursuant in section 3 and deleting the word in section 24A and replacing it with the word, actually want to change it to replacing it with the words by the end of. If we can make those changes, not just by the end of.
Okay. All right, I'll accept that. Is there anything that you want to add to that, Councillor Hughes?
I wanted to have more flexibility for the committee and to recognize that we may not be always meeting for the first time. It's not like an environmental committee where it kind of resets every January. This is going to be ongoing, and so we don't necessarily want to delay having to have a meeting date because we had missing a couple of words in a bylaw.
All right, anyone else? Okay, I'll call for the vote.
Unanimous.
Perfect. Thank you, Cheryl. And then third reading, Councillor Hughes.
We need to do unanimous consent, I think, Mayor.
Oh, right, yeah. Ken still got his hand up from before, so I'll go to him.
Yeah, I was waiting for the unanimous motions. So I'll do that. That unanimous consent be given for consideration of third reading of bylaw 24/2023.
Awesome. Call for the vote. Oh, my check mark's still up, so I'll just keep it up.
Unanimous.
Thank you. Now, third reading, Councillor Hughes.
Sure. That bylaw 24/2023 be read a third and final time.
Thanks. Call for anything further, anyone? Nope. Okay, call for the vote.
Was that okay? Wasn't it different because as amended, should as amended be in there?
Yes.
You know what? You're right. Can I change that, or is it too late to say as amended?
I think it's good.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor.
Okay. So the bylaw 24/2023 be read a third time as amended.
Right.
Unanimous.
Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, so that is the end of our sort of regular agenda. There was no emergent items, but there is councilor updates is today. So I'm gonna go with the order that you guys are on my screen. So Councilor Broadhead, you are on my top left corner. So I'll go to you first.
But Madam Mayor, I haven't had any of my committees meet since the last update. Next audit and finance committee meeting is in early December.
Thank you. Okay, Councilor Hughes.
Actually, I'm the same. I had the garbage meeting met. However, I couldn't connect to the link virtually, and we had an overlap last week with the Lakeview special meeting. So I don't have the details on that, but it was concerning the what you call it, the extended producer responsibility, which we just received a memo on. So just so you know, so that's kind of where we're at right now. I mean, I was able to get in, but they had no sound, and then when I tried to get in again, it couldn't get in, and it was just a bit of a headache there.
Does staff attend that meeting as well with you, Councilor Hughes?
Yes, and I'll tell you that the staff had the same problem that I did today. So we were sent two different links, and so we both went to that link, and then they were like, no, it's a different link. So then we went to the different link, and then there was no audio. So the staff might have had those details. She might have had audio, and I just didn't for some reason. So I saw like a little bit of it with the slides and stuff, but I don't have any other further details except for to tell you that the extended producer responsibility, as we saw in the memo today, is continuing to move forward. Thanks. So yeah, other than that, I'm on the IAC with Wes, so just sit tight for another month or so.
Okay, Councilor
Thank you.
Mike, go
Sorry.
Ahead. It's okay.
No past meetings have taken place since our last update, but Edmonton Salutes, we meet on Friday just before our incident command center tour. So that'll be a tight meeting to get between. And CSAC is upcoming on the 28th, which will be a long meeting. It starts at 5:30, and it is our detailed grant review and approval meeting, which will be the first meeting under the new process that has been outlined. So that'll be a long, very good meeting, but we'll have more updates coming out after that. As we all know, the new process does not bring the grants back to council for final approval, but there will be an update issued.
Yeah, thank you for that. Councilor Bermansky.
Thank you, through the mayor. Arts Advisory Committee. So we had our group appreciation on October 25th, and we went through a civic granting presentation through CSAC. We also had an in-camera portion of the meeting discussing the report for the winners and of the Mayor's Celebration of Arts entrance. And we discussed how there'll be videos for all those shown for the public following that disclosure of who wins those. And then we discussed the Young Artist Legacy again. And our Arts Advisory Committee is coming up within a week. So that's just kind of a little bit outdated news, but we're close to a new meeting. And the Environmental Advisory Committee was on October 26th. That was also our group appreciation night. And we reviewed and approved community grants that are directed through the Environmental Advisory Committee. And of course, that's all top secret till it's voted on. So, but that was, the group did a wonderful job going through those. And I mean, they're very thorough and common sense in all avenues. And it was a really good night. Councillor Killick joined me for a farewell appearance at that one too. And then some of the other council was there for I think Councillor Jolly was there as well for the recognition. So thank you again for attending that. And then we had the Sturgeon River Water Alliance. So that was just a couple of days ago. And the updates from that are quite a few. It was the wetland strategy that's coming forward to increase the amount of wetland area, improve overall condition health, and enhance ongoing management. And there was workshops on that by several groups. The riparian policy that was, it was led by the municipal planning services to complete components of it, but that was discussed in the strategic plan of the North Saskatchewan River plus the Sturgeon River policy. We have state of the watershed to assess aspects of watershed health as a baseline to determine if and what actions are needed to improve. Water term monitoring was completed in several areas. We have in the follow-up to Tetra Tech monitoring that happened in 2021-22, and the funding that was previously granted from ACP and SRWA contracted Associated Environment to complete water analysis. To date, it was compiled from 100 sites, so we have a lot more data to work from going forward. And then the regional lake stewardship project was discussed as well, and that's stewardship and how the Sturgeon River is affected by all those little inlets and outlets of along the way. And I mean, it's really actually eye-opening to see how many communities have an effect and are affected by the river's flow. So that was great. And then the strategic planning that was discussed on October 6th. So that's that will be what's coming up with all these, I guess, incentives. And then there was another grant submitted on September 15th, 2023, because always looking for grants to help these things along. And that's my update for today.
Thanks. Councillor Jolly.
Thank you. So I had a few meetings. The Youth Advisory Committee met, so they continue to work on, a lot of what they work on is just sharing volunteer opportunities in the community. They also kind of talked about council's request to have them kind of come up with a plan for encouraging volunteerism. So the rep actually, they were a little bit unsure about how to proceed. So I actually watched council's debate on the matter, which was interesting to sit and watch too, as someone who was there. And so they'll be continuing to work on that. Seniors Advisory Committee met. I'm the alternate, but I actually did attend for the first part of the meeting. I left about I didn't stay till the end. But they were working on the motion from council to develop that awards program. So that's really been the focus of the last many meetings. They also provided some feedback that they really would have liked to have had direct engagement on our land use bylaw changes. So I encouraged kind of everyone to participate and cultivate the conversation and attend the open house. And so someone did, and they just expressed a desire to have had kind of a direct presentation to that group rather than kind of participate as members of the public. I also attended the Homeland Housing board meeting. As many of you likely know, Mayor Ralph Lariger resigned from Westlock City Council. So he was replaced on the Homeland board. And so I've been elected vice chair again. I was vice chair, I don't know how many years ago. So they asked me to step up again. So I'm doing that position. Some of the updates from the Homeland meeting, really no notable progress on the St. Thomas Street project. We're waiting for funding at this point. Alberta Health Services did reach out to see if we were able to provide or if we have interest in supportive living for out in Westlock. So we're looking into that. Let's see. Just scrolling through my notes here. All of our, financials look good. Homeland is kind of known for keeping its books in order. The long-standing director of finance is retiring next year, so they are actively recruiting for that position. So that's what's happening at Homeland. I also attended the Intercity Forum on Social Policy. So that was my first time at that meeting. Really kind of interesting. The big focuses were just on information sharing. Specifically, there was a presentation from the province on the mental health and addictions activities in the province. And there was also, let's see, presentation from the DM of, I believe it's DM of Health, on seniors, well, it would be, sorry, seniors and community services. So different programs offered in that department, and an opportunity to ask questions of the province. So that was really the bulk of our meeting, was those presentations and kind of everything around that. That's all I have.
Perfect. That's a good one. Thanks. And I think last but not least, Councillor Mackay.
Yeah, thanks for the last but not least. We've had the policing committee last week. As most of you know, you've attended, so thank you very much. That was greatly appreciated. However, it was with it, I noted the immense relief when you guys all realized that you didn't have to stay there for over an hour. I think most of us now know that our chair of the policing committee resigned due to a number of reasons. So we have our acting chair, Ian Sanderson, is going to remain in that position until the first organizational meeting in the new year. The officer in charge, Inspector Komniak, is still on a personal leave. And the interim acting commander was away on leave. So we actually had another interim commander who was there representing the detachment and did a very good job. But we do have stats that I don't think they were shared with all of the council, but I can ship them out in relation to that. I mean, we can start to see that some of our crime stats are certainly trending in the wrong direction. But we did have a presentation, and I think Councillor Bermansky and I'm not sure whether Councillor Hughes joined at that particular time, but we did have a presentation from a civilian member who is responsible for the social media page for the RCMP in I think just Central District or North District. I don't think he has all of RCMP in Alberta, but he was looking for our involvement with the policing committee on their upcoming, well, like they already have a Facebook and X account and Instagram, but they were looking for how do we potentially become involved with their community safety Facebook page. We still have to talk about some of the logistics of that because we weren't sure if they require some of our time, like administrative time, and what that actually looks like. But that's mostly from what occurred at the policing committee. Staffing also, I should note, still remains a significant concern. And they do have, I know Councillor Hughes, were you still there when they were talking about the overtime? Kind of what they're looking, they basically have one officer on shift that works overtime. And that member is responsible either for calls for service or in other proactive enforcement duties. However, there's pretty much one member on each watch that's on overtime. So I'll be interested to see what our financials look like towards the end of the year, if that continues. My Aero Utilities meeting is upcoming this Friday, and at that meeting, it's an org meeting. So, I mean, it's quite a involved one as well. And I don't know, Mayor, are you going to talk about the EMRB meeting in relation to just basically it was just an overview of the housing symposium? I know several of us council members attended the housing symposium put on by EMRB. And then this was kind of a working committee where some of that feedback was sought from members attending, and then I guess just a review of the strategic plan. And IAC doesn't meet till December 14th.
So that's it.
Thank you. The only thing I would add to that EMRB meeting was that we're incorporating housing needs assessment and gap analysis plus a strategy into the EMRB overall strategic plan. So that was good news. Councilor McKay, quick question about air utilities. Are you setting the final rates then on Friday?
That's the plan.
That's the plan. And you said it's an org meeting. Does that mean, do you get reelected as chair every year?
Yes, so I mean, it's a, yeah, that's when the elections take place.
Okay. But I'm confident you will. No one wants that job right now, so.
Yeah, including myself, maybe.
Okay, thank you for all your updates. We are now any information requests, and that not BIRs, but just general IRs or notices of motion. Councillor Hughes, go ahead.
Yeah, so I had a question. I know this is our last chance to talk before we meet for budget. So I had a couple quick budget questions, Mr. Fletcher. On one of for one of the cases that came forward, I think it was for 5,100 for the staffing for that person kind of rotated around in FCSS, and it said that the person needed to come in to compensate for people working from home. And I was trying to put those pieces together when I'm like, if they're working from home, that would be because it would not be necessary to have somebody come in, because if they need to be in, then they should be in, as opposed to hiring somebody else to cover for the fact that they were not attending in person. So I don't know if we can explain that a little bit better as to why there would be somebody coming in to compensate for people working from home.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I'll ask Director Elizabeth Wilkie to provide initial comment.
Yeah, hello. Sorry, just took me a second to unmute. We're just in the process of responding to the question. So they're not covering for remote work. What they're covering for is when an employee has an illness or symptoms where they aren't able to come into the workplace, but are able to continue to be productive at home. So it only happens maybe a couple of times a year. The rest of the time they are there for RDO coverage and for full-time support to Culture Branch.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted clarity on that, so appreciate that. The other question I had, I'm hoping is fairly straightforward. The economic development request for 452,000, it says it's being paid for from reserve, but I did not see where we specified what the name of the reserve was. So I'm just wondering where are we pulling the money out of?
Yeah, absolutely. Diane McMorty's just pulling something up here.
Yep.
Trying to pull my face up is what I'm trying to pull up here. The intent was that it was going to come from the stabilization reserve. If it didn't note that, it noted that right in the budget document, but if it didn't, the intent was stabilization reserve. Because it is just it is one time for a 3-year period.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That was it. Thank you.
All right. I see no more hands up, so no more IRs, etc. We will now entertain a motion to go into camera for our 13.1, our conversation with Mr. Fletcher. How about you, Councillor Broadhead?
It would be my pleasure, Madam Mayor. I move that council move in camera to have a confidential dialogue with the Chief Administrative Officer pursuant to Section 24(1)A of the Freedom of Information and Privacy Act.
Perfect. Call for the vote.
Unanimous.
Thank you. All right, we'll take a second. Sean, do you want me to take over as host?
Yes, Mayor. As soon as we establish the room, I'll hand you the host.
Okay, sounds good. And I'll let you guys that are present in chambers pack up and go into the lounge. Does anyone need a break?